Hello everyone, my name is Lisa Ann Spencer and thank you for stopping by my channel today. I will be videoing a hashtag Tea Tuesday and I'm not drinking tea today, so if you're interested in hearing about what I am drinking and what's special about this glass, and if you'd like to join me for a quick Bible study, then stay tuned. All right, first of all, what I'm drinking today is actually iced coffee. I was in a bit of a hurry this morning when I had my usual morning coffee, which by the way is mostly decaf, organic decaf, and just a little bit of caffeinated coffee for, a little kick and a little flavor. And I put 2 measured tablespoons of heavy cream. I do that twice a day, once in the morning and then at 3 in the afternoon. So this morning I had to take my kittens to the vet. Our mama kit had 2 kittens several months ago, and so we've been doing the regular vet visits, and today was their last vaccine. They got their rabies today. So I had kind of an early and fast-paced morning, so I had cold coffee left over. So I just take my cold coffee and pour it over ice. And this glass, let me bring it close so you can kind of see the details. Some of you older ladies will probably recognize this, and I may have even talked about it in a previous video. Not sure, but anyway, I actually picked this one up at Goodwill a couple of years ago, but it attracted my attention because when I was a child, we had this set of glasses, and in fact, we had this size and then the little juice glasses. And the way that my mom got those was in washing powder. I believe it was called Lux, L-U-X, washing powder. And every time you bought the box, buried in the box was one of these tumblers or juice glasses. So my mom used that brand and she collected the whole set. And I even have some old home video of a maybe Thanksgiving meal. And you can see me when I was like 9 years old drinking out of a glass just like this. I love old things. I love nostalgic things, things that bring me childhood memories. I enjoy so much. So that's the story behind this glass. I'm drinking iced coffee too. Normally I will reheat my cold coffee in the morning, but it is a warm day here in Kentucky and it's actually kind of humid, so I thought iced coffee sounded more refreshing than hot coffee today. All right, so I'm going to do a really quick flip through of some scriptures in the Bible today. Not a Bible tip, but just a topic that's kind of been on my mind. I have a good YouTube friend. Her name is Jeanie, and I will link her channel below. Her channel is called Lead Me to Peace, Jeanie, and she is an older lady, well, older than me, and just very remarkable person, just so gentle and kind, and I enjoy listening to her videos. She does supper time things and she plays piano, and I don't know, she's just so sweet. So I enjoy her channel very much. And recently on her channel she was talking about she had put in applications and thought about going to work. Well, after a very short while, she said, I'm withdrawing all my applications because I need to be at home. So her home is just herself and her husband, and I believe they're both retired other than doing maybe some volunteer work. They have dogs, and of course they have children who work and grandchildren. But she said, I need to be home. My place is at home. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. I'm an older mom. I have 6 children. 1 is married and out of the house, and I still have 5 children in the home. Some of them are what you would call adult. My oldest daughter is 25 and she still lives with us, as does my 23-year-old daughter and our son who just turned 20, and then we have a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old. Now, our house is full and busy. I've been a stay-at-home mom, stay-at-home wife. I've homeschooled the children, and home is where my heart is, and home is where my work is. But I was so glad to listen to Jeanie in her life, which is maybe less complicated than my life, but less busy, but it's not less busy. There's always things to do. And it is a biblical and godly role for a woman to be a keeper at home and a guide of the house. So those are the scriptures that I would like to share with you today. So I'm going to start by turning to the book of Titus. Titus is in Paul, the Apostle Paul's letters toward the end. And I've got to grab a Kleenex, excuse me. When I drink coffee, it makes my nose run. Excuse me. All right, so Titus, it's the letter T letters, Thessalonians, Timothy, Titus, are all together in Paul's letters. And the way that I learned to remember is you go from largest to smallest, Thessalonians being a very big word. You got 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, and then Timothy, 1st and 2nd Timothy, and then little Titus at the end. So in Titus chapter 2, there is a very popular verse, especially in women's ministries, and I'll just read it to you, I'm just going to begin in verse 1. Paul is writing to Titus, who is establishing churches on the island of Crete, and he's appointing bishops. That's what we would call a pastor today, bishops, elders, deacons, in all of these churches. Historically, it says there were over 120 cities on the island of Crete. So Titus is head over all these, and he goes and he makes sure that each church has a pastor and a group of leaders. So then he's teaching them what to teach, sound doctrine. These are the things that you should be teaching. So chapter 2, verse 1, Paul says to Timothy, "But speak thou." The word speak means teach. "Speak thou the things which become sound doctrine." That, the word that means purpose. What is the purpose of speaking and teaching sound doctrine? That the aged men may be sober, grave, temperate, sound in faith, in charity, in patience. Verse 3, "The aged women likewise, that they be in behavior as becometh holiness, not false accusers, not given to much wine, teachers of good things." That, what's the purpose of the older women speaking and teaching? That they may teach the young women to be sober, to love their husbands, to love their children, to be discreet, chaste, keepers at home, good, obedient to their own husbands, that the word of God be not blasphemed. That last part is so important for us to understand. Blasphemy is resistance, resisting God's will, resisting God's doctrine and instruction. So when women resist it, they're blaspheming God. That's a very serious charge, and one that when we stand before the judgment seat of Christ, we will have to answer for those things. But what I want to focus on here is the keepers at home. So when you use a concordance and you search for the word keepers or keep, and I recommend that you do that. It's an excellent study. But what you find is there are not any references that are used in this way, keepers at home. When you find the word keepers in your King James Bible, most often it says keepers of. So a keeper is a guard. So a keeper of the sheep And there's other positions in the Old Testament that are keepers of. So it's being responsible for something. I'm guarding this. Like a keeper of the sheep usually do not own the sheep. They're just protecting it and guarding it for the owner thereof. Okay, but keepers at, using that little preposition at, makes all the difference in the world. It actually means to keep at home. Where are you supposed to keep is at home. Women are given this tremendous responsibility of being that person who stays with the home, is in charge of the home, not above the husband, but the husband's out working all day. That's the norm. And the woman is in charge of the running of the house. Now in Timothy, and I didn't write this down, so I'm going to try to find it. I think it's 1 Timothy. Yes, 1 Timothy chapter 5, and this is a chapter on widows. And Paul talks about the church taking responsibilities for widows who have no children to take care of them. She's desolate and poor. She doesn't have any sons or nephews or daughters who are able to support her financially, and she's 60 years old and over. But he says to Timothy, who's also doing the same thing, he's establishing churches in Ephesus and in Asia, and he's teaching sound doctrine, and he's teaching Timothy what to teach. What doctrine do you teach the church? So here is found 1 Timothy chapter 5, and it begins in verse 11, but the younger widows, so that's any widow who's under 60 years old, refuse to take care of them financially. For when they have begun to wax wanton against Christ, they will marry. And this, it says, having damnation. So first of all, when you read the word damnation in a King James Bible, it does not mean loss of salvation. It means self-destruction. So you take a young widow, and if the church supports her, it's like putting her on welfare. Well, now all her needs are met, and what happens to her? She self-destructs. It says they begin to wax wanton. They have cast off their first faith. And withal, I'm continuing to read, withal, they learn to be idle, wandering about from house to house, or Facebook page to Instagram to Twitter. Hi, Serenity, I'm in the middle of making a video. What do you need? Okay, I'll come join you in a few minutes. Okay, so women who are on church welfare, and even I would say government welfare, they're going to tend to be idle. They're going to self-destruct. They're going to wax wanton against Christ, meaning against the doctrine that Christ teaches, what his role is for women. A woman should not be supported in that manner, and that is what Paul is laying out here. So what does Paul say? In verse 14, he says, I will. This is my will and my desire, therefore, that the younger women marry. So notice he doesn't say younger widows. And I believe he does that because he's not only including young widows, but he's including all young women. He says, my will is that they marry, bear children, guide the house, give none occasion to the adversary to speak reproachfully, for some young women are already turned aside after Satan. So this is what it means about waxing wanton against Christ. Christ has laid out his will and purpose and his roles for our lives in his word. And when we go against that, we turn towards Satan and against Christ, away from Christ. So that's a pretty heavy charge again. But anyway, the term that's used here is guide the house. That's our role as women. All right, so I want to show you one more thing before I go. One other Bible verse in the book of Proverbs. I love the book of Proverbs. I've been studying it for years, and I've already mentioned that I'm writing a commentary on the book of Proverbs that I hope to have finished by the end of the year. But in Proverbs chapter 7, there is the description of a harlot. It doesn't call her a harlot, but it says she is dressed as an harlot. So usually the way someone is dressed is a sign of what they are. So I'm just going to read some of the characteristics of this woman. Okay, the writer of Proverbs, beginning in chapter 7, verse 7, let's go back to 6. For at the window of my house I looked through my casement and beheld among the simple ones, I discerned among the youths a young man void of understanding. So he's looking out his window, he sees a young man who's ignorant. What is he ignorant of? The knowledge and the will of God, God's wisdom. All right, verse 8, passing through the street near her corner, and he went the way to her house in the twilight, in the evening, in the black and dark night. He says it that way because you're going from dark to darker to darkest. The closer he gets to her house, the more spiritually dark it becomes. And behold, there met him a woman with the attire of an harlot and subtle of heart. She is loud and stubborn. Her feet abide not in her house. Now she is without, now in the street, and lieth in wait at every corner. So my purpose is not to read this entire passage to you, but to point out some of her characteristics. Loud and stubborn, but this one especially, her feet abide not in her house. She is not a guide of the house. She is not a keeper at home. And so this teaches us from God's Word what God's roles and expectations for women. And there's glory in it, there's honor in it, there's stability. There's stability for your husband, for your children, for yourself, and there's so many blessings and benefits to be reaped from that. So I hope that this has been helpful to you today. If you have any questions, of course, please feel free to drop those below, or you'll find my email in the bottom of the description box and also on my About page if you wish to ask questions that you don't want everybody else to be able to see. Please feel free to do that. And I also want to say in the description box below, of course, as always, you will find the links to Kathy and Patty's channels. They are the hostesses of this open collaboration called Tea Tuesday, where we get together, drink tea or coffee, excuse me, and share a little bit about life or whatever interests you. And I'm always glad to do these very quick Bible studies and Bible study tips for you. So until next Tuesday, Happy Tea Tuesday.